Greetings from New York City. There is an absolute MAGA meltdown over the New York City mayoral race. Rolling Stone is reporting the following. Put this up. Right wingers are losing their minds over Zohran's win. Zohran Mamdani shocked the political establishment on Tuesday as he won New York City's mayoral primary. Conservatives are not taking it well. They are absolutely losing their minds because there is an economic populist message, exactly like Bernie's and AOC's. It turns out that he is a Muslim and an immigrant. And so instead of talking about policy, of course, they go full xenophobia. But Fox tiptoes in trying to talk about policy. And this is, I guess this works on their network. Put this up. Housing. He wants to freeze the rent, building affordable housing. He wants to create city-owned grocery stores and fare-free buses. So the people that come in that do all of the laboring in Manhattan can ride into Manhattan for free. For LGBTQ plus rights and protections, he wants to expand and protect gender-affirming care citywide. But I want to remind you, they also claims he's a radical jihadist at the same time. So I've never quite seen that. Making New York City an LGBTQIA plus sanctuary city, and as two people from red states where homophobia is at a fever pitch, these sanctuary cities are so important for so many members of the LGBTQIA plus community that live in horrific religious fascist states. And lastly, he wants to raise the minimum wage to $30 an hour by 2030, and he wants to kick ICE out of the city. I guess, I don't know, I guess when MAGA base sees this stuff, any sort of help to the working class is just such a turnoff.
Well, they're furious. And I'm looking at that slide thinking that those are all wonderfully needed things to help people live in the working class. But I think you're right. I think seeing help for poor people and the working class, it sends tingles down their spine. They don't like it. It's socialism or communism.
Okay, next up, we have a tweet from Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk says 24 years ago, a group of Muslims killed 2,753 people on 9/11. Now a Muslim socialist is on pace to run New York City. Alex Cole retweets with comment and says a white Christian killed 168 people in Oklahoma City. Should we ban white Christian mayors too? Or is your math selective? And I want to point out a couple of things. Number one, this is straight up xenophobia playing into the base of MAGA. Secondly, I want to point out that Saudi Arabia funded 9/11, and Donald Trump goes over and plays patty cake with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia invested $2 billion in Jared Kushner. And this is where democracy dies, and this is what Republicans do. They say immigrants that are coming over here to work and try to get a better life for themselves, we're going to arrest you at Home Depot. We're going to separate from your families. We're sending you as far away from here as we possibly can. And then he sells these Trump cards. So if you're a rich immigrant, then you're allowed in. So it's a complete hypocrisy and a complete duplicity. When it comes to Iran, they're terrible on human rights. They're awful. When it comes to Muslims that care about freedom for everybody, like this mayoral candidate, he's terrible and he's awful. But when it comes to Saudi Arabia, they're completely fine because they enrich the Trump family and they enrich other billionaires in the United States, despite butchering a journalist for the Washington Post, dismembering him, turning him into acid and pouring him down the drain. What does the United States do about that? Crickets. Nothing. But this sort of moral duplicity reigns on a personal level for MAGA people, and then it sets the psychological soil for them to buy into all of this duplicity at the top. What the Democratic Socialist movement is offering is moral clarity. None of us are free until all of us are free, period. And MAGA has a hard time digesting that.
Well, I think it's so funny to me, not funny, haha, but just interesting that they run around criticize, well, he's a Muslim and da 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 da. The laws or the guidelines of Project 2025 and the evangelical white Christian nationalist movement, they are so in lockstep with those things,
Totally.
putting down women, homophobia, misogyny, Black and brown people are, less than. So everything they're criticizing this radical Muslim for, they are doing the exact same thing in the United States under Christian nationalism.
All right, next up we have Stephen Miller melting down. Pop this up. Stephen Miller says New York City is the clearest warning yet of what happens to a society when it fails to control migration. And Micah Irfin's response to this, if New York City was all white, Mamdani would have won by more, LOL. And the facts are, as the polling came in, white educated voters voted overwhelmingly for this candidate. And I saw a graph on Twitter where in Hispanic communities, Cuomo won more. And this is just their constant go-to. Xenophobia and immigrants are the problem. They never, ever want to address the following. New York City billionaires have benefited the most from all of these loopholes and a very unfair rigged system. While all of these workers commute into Manhattan or other places around New York and their wages are not raised, it's difficult to buy groceries. And somebody comes in and says, you know what, there's a lot more of them than there are of these few billionaires. And these billionaires are so sick and so vile that if they paid 20% more in taxes, it would 0% affect their lives, 0%. But that 20% of revenue plays to possibly having legislation that helped the working class and they could see their wages go up as well, would be invaluable. But they're not interested in that. The billionaire victim class is just more than I can take. But of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the biggest bigot and the biggest racist of them all, pop this up. She posts a picture of the Statue of Liberty with a burqa on, and she says, this hits hard. And this is so rich for the party and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who never acknowledges the suffrage movement and the women prior to her that have fought so hard for her to have the very job that she has, to then just go to the lowest hanging fruit imaginable and post that up there. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is an absolute disgrace. She unfortunately represents millions of hypocritical Americans that think at the same time, again, this is that complete dichotomy, that total moral duplicity. A lot of Christian Americans, where we're from, think, oh, our faith is so fabulous. Honey, to their daughters, you need to submit to your husband. Can you believe the way they treat women in the Middle East?
Right.
They don't see any space between that. When you live in a red state, listener, you see this coming in. And as a person who's not religious, I see very little difference between Sharia law and fanatical Christian movement. In our state, we have the Trump Bible in classrooms. We have the 10 Commandments coming up. They have banned all transgender care. We have friends that have a transgender child. It is a very horrific and terrible time. And so you see this complete invasion of privacy and the degradation and regressive nature of all of this Christian fascism. And so it's just unbelievably rich. People that want to quote the Bible nonstop and then at the same time talk about how pro-democracy they are and pro-constitution they are, but yet they ignore the separation of church and state clause. And then they put this up. And it's just, they cannot fight policy. They can't. So they go to the lowest hanging fruit. And you know what? What she said, this hits hard. That does hit hard with evangelical Christians because they think they're superior and they think their faith is superior. And when you look at the MAGA supermajorities in states like ours, Oklahoma, or you look at Alabama, you look at Mississippi, you look at Louisiana, the most religious Americans that have elected Republican supermajorities, the absolute worst performing states and the most parasitic states that take so much money from the federal government, a lot more that they take in because they're parasites than they actually produce out.
Right. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, first of all, she's a nut. And the only thing I would take issue with is you said that she's the most despicable person in this entire Trump administration. I think it's Stephen Miller, because
There's
he
no
is
question.
an immigrant,
Yeah, you're right.
and he is hateful. And I look at this and I think, okay, the rural America, the white rage people, they're probably all fired up. But I would hope that people seeing this across the country, oh, he does want to fight for the working class. He wants to raise the minimum wage. You are telling people that they can't have insurance, they can't have health benefits, and that their wages should stay at $7.25 an hour. And a lot of Fox viewers make that amount of money, but they're furious that they want to raise it because they're so brainwashed by their cruelty and their hatred.
Well, this is the how they put a shiny object in front of these people. Don't look at your own wages. Look at this brown-skinned man who isn't a, quote, real American, who is a Muslim, who is different from you. So they focus all chips in on that, and they can't debate the policy of it. And this has been the big lie to the working class of America by both parties. Now, the Democrats don't use as much race baiting, but I will say it's pretty rich that the Democratic establishment supported Andrew Cuomo,
Right.
who is, a sexual predator, and the nursing home scandal, beholden to billionaires, and a total centrist. And they don't listen to their party when they have a 16% approval rating. And they refuse to go left. They refuse because they think they know better. And the fact of the matter is this: Kamala Harris was left. And then the Democratic establishment comes in and tells her to go to the center, start parading around with Liz Cheney, talk about this, talk about that, instead of taking a message that actually drives out tens of thousands of people and completely excites the base. This has been a very exciting race, and his message is not radical. They will lie to you and tell you that he is radical, that he is not American, that his religion isn't like yours. I'll tell you this much: as a non-religious person, I've never had a Muslim try to convert me or tell me I was going to hell and get all up in my business in a very codependent, toxic way. I've had hundreds of Christians do it, that think they're better than me and shame me and berate me and act arrogant towards me because I don't believe the same way they believe. Next up, we have Ted Cruz. To all my friends in New York who are not communists, come to Texas. We love freedom and we're not nuts. Okay, this is a complete lie. Number one, women in Texas do not have abortion care at all. And they are either bleeding out or having to drive to other states. They're putting the 10 Commandments in the classroom. It is a complete Christian nationalist hellscape of the highest order. And Ted Cruz is the child of an immigrant that hates himself, that claims to be a Christian, but he emasculates himself every single day because he stands up and fights for a man that called his wife ugly. And he stands up and fights for the billionaires to be able to accumulate more wealth. Meanwhile, he claims that Jesus Christ is his Lord and personal Savior. And I'm no Christian, but one thing that I've read in the Bible is that Jesus Christ very clearly and very candidly speaks out against the accumulation of wealth. And he speaks out against wealthy people. So this breathtaking hypocrisy is exactly where democracies die and fascist theocracies arise. They want what these Middle Eastern countries have. They just want you to remove the religion of Islam and put in their cruel Old Testament version of Christianity. But I want to play this clip from CNN about polling within the Democratic Party.
But is this more a New York City thing, or is this more of a sign of a larger national trend when it comes to the Democratic Party?
Yeah, just like AOC's victory in 2018, this did happen locally, but I think you can take it up nationally. What are we talking about here? Well, you think about Democratic establishment, you think about Democratic Party leaders, pretty much all of them were behind Andrew Cuomo. But the bottom line is the Democratic base is fed up, done with the Democratic establishment. This is true in New York. It's true nationally. Democrats who say their party leaders should be replaced. Look at this. This is a recent poll from Reuters Ipsos. 62% of Democrats nationally say their party leaders should be replaced. Party leaders like Andrew Cuomo, party leaders like Jim Clyburn, who, of course, endorsed Andrew Cuomo. You think about all the
That's good. This is a huge point that I want to make. The Democratic Party cannot, on the one hand, make the argument against Trump that he's corrupt, that he is does predatorial things towards women, and is beholden to billionaires. They can't make that argument on the one hand and then do a complete 180 and put tens of millions of dollars into a mayoral race where somebody is corrupt, predatorial towards women, and beholden to billionaires. Which is it, Democratic establishment? You have a 16% approval rating. And this takes us back to 2016 to the Democratic convention where you had Bernie and Hillary Clinton. And we have to learn this. Either the Democratic establishment needs to go join MAGA, period, or they need to move with their base. Nobody's really a moderate. A moderate is such a puss out. Nothing that this mayoral candidate is saying is completely radical. It is a more sustainable economic approach that gives everybody a shot at this. And the billionaire meltdown over this, and they're going to flee. This is the exact same thing as white flight in the 60s when they desegregated schools, and you had all of the white people moving out to the suburbs because they didn't want their kids to be around black people. Well, you know what? Those people still exist in this country now, and it's called the Heritage Foundation. The KKK was a religious organization. It never went away. It's just changed its complexion. So if the billionaires want a white flight away from the city, swing for the fences. Go have fun living with all the whacked out, crazy conservatives that want to take away your daughter's right to an abortion, that want to indoctrinate your children into a religion that may not be yours, and start eroding democracy. Swing for the fences and see how well your Fortune 500 company does in that type of government.
I completely agree with you. I think the Democratic establishment needs to look at this and say, this is what people will come out and vote for. People are hungry for leadership that combats MAGA. And I'm with you. You can't play patty cake and then act like all this stuff Trump's doing so wrong and then just go straight down the line. And I was just repulsed that the Democratic establishment still goes on and on about Trump and Hegseth and all their nefarious acts with women, but supports Andrew Cuomo. It makes no sense.
And they got their ass beat, and they deserve to get their ass beat. And any Democrat right now that still runs on this centrist, moderate shit that caused the party to lose to a man that cheats at golf and cannot blend his makeup and is completely dementia ridden. How many times do you morons have to sit around and spend millions of dollars about how to communicate with the American people when the American people are, by and large, showing you how we want to be represented? The No Kings March, millions of Americans stood up and turned out. And it's your turn, Democratic establishment, to jump on or go to MAGA, because I don't see that big of a difference in the people that supported Andrew Cuomo and the people that support MAGA. Maybe you're a little less homophobic. Maybe you're a little less anti-immigrant. Maybe you're a little less racist, but you're not willing to break down the systems that enable all of those evil things to live, thrive, and give oxygen. Those of us in America right now that support this want all of that suffocated. We want freedom. This Democratic establishment has got to jump on board. All right, that's all we have right now. We'll see you all later today.